When I turned around to give Jesse a hug, I noticed that he had written on the side of my car with his little fingernail in the frost, "I love you." And he had drawn hearts on all the windows, and I just thought that was so precious. And I knew that that was one of life's moments. So I ran inside and I got my phone and brought it back out and actually put him in front of that message, took his picture, gave him a hug and a kiss, and sent him off to school. When we heard that there had been a shooting at a school in Sandy Hook, you never think the worst, and you would never ever imagine something as heinous as what happened. I just really wasn't even that worried, because then nothing can really ever happen to your first grader, right? It took me about 45 minutes to drive there. Still not really knowing much, but not with any sort of panic. And it's just a sea of kids and parents calling out their children's name, and I'm looking for my little brown head, and I don't see him. I was trying to get information, but there was really no information forthcoming. But there was, you know, just this slow dawning, I would say, over the course of the day. And we sat in the corner. I just wanted quiet and peace. And I do remember my brother and his fiance coming down from Boston. This always gets me, because I remember my mom walking up to him and telling him, and he just doubled over in pain and anguish and like total shock. And it was what I was feeling, but not portraying in a physical sense. And I felt so bad for the pain that he was feeling. And then I said, you know, let's go. The next morning I got up and fixed myself a cup of tea. It was still dark. It was very early. And I hadn't watched TV or anything. I sat down on the couch and I picked up my phone and I was reading through the text messages, and there was a text message from Jesse's dad, and it said, "Jesse's been eulogized on the cover of the New York Post." And I thought, what? It doesn't make any sense. Why? Why would they do that? And so I remember pressing the link, and this page came up, and I remember reading the headlines that 26 people had died, and I had no idea that day when I left the firehouse. I guess looking back, I realized that other people lost their lives. I couldn't process that. I was just processing my own loss. And I dropped my phone. And I just started bawling. I could not believe the magnitude of the tragedy. I thought I would never be able to come home, because I, you know, raised my boys here, and Jesse's personality was like so exuberant, and he had so much energy. It was like he was bouncing off the walls, and it was so wonderful, and he was always happy, and just so many memories here. And I just thought, I'll never be able to go back to my farmhouse. I eventually went back about a month later. I did have to come back to get his clothes for the funeral, something no parent should ever have to do. So I picked out flannel-lined pants and a turtleneck and another shirt to go over that. And that was when, on my way out, I found the message that he had written on our kitchen chalkboard: "Nurturing, healing, love." And I was just astounded, because I knew that those words weren't in a 6-year-old's vernacular, much less Jesse's vernacular. And of course they were phonetically spelled, because he was in first grade and just learning to write. But I knew that it was a prophetic message, and I knew right then and there that he had a spiritual awareness that he wasn't going to be with us for long, and he wanted to leave a message of comfort for his family and friends. And so I also knew, seeing that blackboard, that that would be my mission for the rest of my life. to spread Jesse's message of nurturing, healing love. At his funeral, which was the following week, I got up and I said, there's, you know, everybody's asking, what can we do for you? And I said, there is something that you can do for us. This whole tragedy started with an angry thought in the shooter's head. And an angry thought can be changed. So I'm going to ask you to actively change one angry thought into a loving thought. Consciously do this every day. And in doing so, you'll make yourself feel better, you'll positively impact those around you, and through the ripple effect, you'll make this a better world. And the response that I got from that was overwhelming, how it had changed people's lives, how they were dedicating their lives to choosing love and choosing loving thoughts over angry thoughts. You know, right after the shooting, and I'm back at my mom's house, and I'm thinking, my God, how could something like this happen? And I felt like it was an angry thought in the shooter's head at some point. And I pictured him as a little boy having angry thoughts without the tools or nurturing environment to deal with those thoughts, and then how thoughts escalate into rage. And we know that anger changes us on a cellular level in our bodies, that it can rewire our brains and the way that we think. And so he had this unchecked rage, and I believe rage is what fills our prison systems and leads to acts of violence such as this. And then I thought, my God, but a thought can be changed. You just need that awareness. And that's when I started advocating for social and emotional learning. It's understanding that you're not your thoughts. It's understanding how the brain works. And it's just so important that we teach that. And I felt like if Adam Lanza, who is our shooter, had had that type of education, it wouldn't have happened. Forgiveness is like, I felt like I was dragging around the shooter. And he was attached to me by somewhat of an umbilical cord, and all of my personal power was running from me through this cord into the shooter, and I was dragging him around with me everywhere, and my personal power was flowing through this umbilical cord in the form of anger that I would have intermittently. And forgiveness for me was a big set of scissors and a choice, and I just cut the cord that attached the shooter and me, and I forgave him. And I was able to retain all of my personal power and move forward. I learned that it's a process. It starts with a choice and it becomes a process, because you can make the choice to forgive, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to fall back into anger. And I think, you know, we think about forgive and forget, and if we forgive and then we become angry again, we think we failed. And that's not the case. You forgive, and I hear little details of what happened in the classroom, and that I get angry, but I just take a deep breath and I choose to forgive again, and that's okay.